Welcome to Authentic Living with Roxanne, a place where we have conscious conversations about things that really matter in our lives. And now here's your host, Roxanne Derhaj.
Hi everyone, it's Roxanne. How are you this week? This week I have someone that I recently met about 2 months ago, and I sat with Jennifer at a meeting for the Canadian Speakers Association, and really was intrigued by what she did, and thought it would be a good compliment to my show. So Jennifer, thanks so much for being here today.
Oh, so much fun to be here with you. What a great way to start off the day.
Awesome. So I'm going to read a little bit about Jennifer, and why I was intrigued was she is an intuitive business coach. So that when she said that, I went, whoa, what is that? And I could just even feel by her presence sitting next to her that things were a bit different. She helps established female entrepreneurs step into an energetic upward cycle, high vibration, leading to more opportunities, better clients, and a huge expansion of impact and income. She helps you to realign your soul, heart, and mind to clearly see what you to do in your life, your business, and your relationships. Awesome. This allows you to confidently make decisions, live life authentically, and run a business that builds you up and energizes you. When Jennifer's not working, she loves hanging out with her kids, hiking with her husband, and walking barefoot in the grass. Maybe not in the winter, though.
No.
And having delicious conversations with high-vibing friends, all parts of her spiritual practice. Wow, that's sounds really neat. So Jennifer, now I've worked with business coaches. I've been exposed to a lot of business coaches. I'm sure a lot of people listening have too done a fair amount of business coaching. And a lot of the things, though, people that talk about business, it's kind of like, what's the vision, what's the mission, all that kind of stuff. So tell me more about what an intuitive coach is, business coach.
Great, absolutely. So what I do a little bit differently is I teach people more about how they're showing up. I get people to be present with who they are, what their values are, what they really want out of life, and then understanding what they need to be their best version of themselves for what they need for their daily practice. What do they need to be giving back in community to feel fulfilled in that giving and serving? What they need to have in their relationships so that they can feel fulfilled in being there for their kids, their siblings, their parents, their friends, their spouses or their partners. And then once you have an idea of what that looks like for how you want to live, then we look at their business. And we energetically tune into the ideas that they have for their business, because a lot of entrepreneurs are amazing and they are so creative and they have all these amazing ideas, but they get bogged down and make very little progress and a lot of ideas. And then they beat themselves up for not really making a lot of progress. So I help them with getting focused on what's really in alignment with how they want to live, and then understand who do they need to be to make the decisions to get to where they want to go. So tuning in to the vision that they have. So we create a structure for their business by tuning into the ideas, prioritizing what's going to fit in their lives. We create a structure for how they're going to move forward for over a course of a year and a bit further out, depending on where they are in their business. But it really is about who are you being and how do you want to live?
Do you find most people, you're talking pretty deep stuff, right? And do you find that it's difficult for business people to do that? Because you're talking about slowing and really listening. I might think that this widget is a good idea, right? Because it's marketable and it's trending or whatever. Do you find that it's, when you're talking about slowing, are Are most people opposed to that, or are they open because they're attracted to you knowing the kind of coaching that you do?
They are at that place where they are spiritually focused in some way, shape, or form. They've had a taste of it and they know that they want it more in their life. And they love the concept of bringing that type of presence into their business and how they approach their business and how they deliver in their business. It's much more grounded, much more authentic in alignment to who they're really meant to be and how they're meant to serve. Because a lot of people, so many of my clients, they've left the corporate world.
Mm-hmm.
And because they feel like they're working too hard, they're not moving in the direction that they want to move in, and they're just feeling uncomfortable and out of alignment, just yucky, and it's not who they are. So they start to do things for themselves, and then they break out and they do their own business. But then they realize, oh my gosh, I've got so much to do. And it's a little different when you're an entrepreneur because you don't have the same sort of support systems as a big corporation. You have an IT department, you have somebody to order your office supplies and all of that. So there's that component of it, understanding what your genius is as well for how to move forward. But you have to make sure that you're not going to get yourself back into that same spot.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be back into hating where you are, hating who you're being. You need to be making these choices in a place of where you're really aware of who you're being and how you're showing up. How is this all impacting you? And is this how you want to live?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Because as an entrepreneur, whether you need a paperclip or you need like marketing that same day, you have to go through so many things when you're starting off until you're at the point where you can kind of outsource things. Obviously, a lot of people, I've done it. I'm sure you've done it when you start your business, and it's draining. It can be draining, right? Because there's so many parts to the business that you need to learn all the social. And when the new social comes out, it's like, oh, I need to know that. And so it's kind of like you're constantly being pulled in a million directions, and everything supposedly works. Podcasts work, social media works, blogs work, vlogs work, all that stuff comes flying at you. And then after a while, you're like, oh, I think I have a headache, right? So that's something that you see often with people coming to you.
Yes. And I am working with people who have done a lot of that, who are either starting to work with virtual assistants or other team members, or they already have that in place and they want to move to the next level. Mm-hmm. And they know that who they're being or who they were being to get to the point where they were, they've got some systems in place. They have an understanding of how they want to be in the world or how they have wanted to be in the world. And now it's time to move up. How am I going to show up now? What is it that I really want? What's pulling me forward? How can I make the biggest difference and give back in the most magnificent way?
So tell me how did you get into it? Business coaching, I probably think you went to school and you did your coaching and stuff like that. I'm assuming you can tell me if it's otherwise.
No, I didn't.
You didn't go to school for...
I did go to school. I studied hospitality and tourism management. I got a Bachelor of Commerce. I remember in high school, my accounting teacher was actually encouraging me to become an accountant because I was really good with numbers.
Okay.
But I knew that was not where I was drawn to be. So I took hospitality because I wanted to be of service. I loved the hospitality industry. I went into event planning. And so with that, there's also project management, lots of deadlines. I also worked with marketing. So those were two my areas of specialty. And I worked in the corporate world. I've worked in the not-for-profit. I've worked on the supplier side as well as on the client side for events as well. And when I had kids, then I realized that I did not want to do that commute into Toronto anymore. So I focused on working closer to home. And when I had my second son, I realized, I don't want to just work just to pay for daycare. That just doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't fulfill me. So I had a part-time job. And when that company closed, I then started my business. I was part of a Ontario program for starting up my business on Ontario Self-Employment Benefit Program. And I got coached for a whole year on getting my business started. And I had created a business called Live Healthy, the intention of inspiring people to be proactive about their health. I had created a video podcast. So this is 2008 when podcasting was still very new. I co-hosted and co-produced it with a naturopathic doctor from Toronto. And my intention was just to sell advertising in the podcast. But the problem was that I didn't believe in myself. I didn't have any qualifications as a healthcare practitioner, and I didn't know why anybody would want to listen to me. So I didn't do a very good job when I was approaching companies to try to get advertising. So after that period of time, how that had started was I had created a group called Healthy Moms Connect, where I had connected with a number of different women in the community, practitioners in the community, and I wanted to do sessions where we could learn about how to be a healthier mom. So back in 2007, like all the wellness stuff was just starting. It was just starting to bubble up, and it's not at the place where it is now. So I went through a journey of not believing in myself, being passionate about this topic, but not believing in myself. And so things did not progress the way I'd hoped. So I looked at, okay, how can I use the skills, my passion for wellness, my event planning background, and how can I use this to still do good in the world? So I looked at corporate wellness. And so I got some corporate wellness clients. However, that was 2008. And at that point, I don't know if you remember what was happening at that time. That was the recession. So as I'm going on, knocking on doors, literally going into offices, and they let the receptionists go because they don't have the budget for that.
Right.
So I nurtured my corporate clients, and I took on a few other projects, and I stepped back to say, all right, I've really only been working at my business part-time because my kids were both young, and my youngest was still going to school every other day. Once my youngest gets to go to school full-time, that's when I'll give myself permission to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. And that is when the Pandora's box, the beautiful spiritual wonderland opened up for me, and I discovered all these different spiritual tools, and it helped me get out of that place of like I was not very good at making decisions. I would get my stomach tied up in knots. So for instance, when we moved into our house, we're painting our kitchen, and just above the kitchen window, there's 2 sets of cabinets on the left side and right side of the window, and there's this little 8-inch strip, 3 feet wide, of wall. And it took me 30 minutes to decide, do I paint it the same color as the walls or the ceiling? And that is such a simple decision. It should not have taken that long. But I was so afraid of making a mistake. So on my spiritual journey, what it's helped me to do is to become detached, to not get caught up in all of the logical things of, oh my gosh, what can happen if I do this, and take you down a deep hole of all the things that can go wrong, but rather take a step back, become detached from it, and look at all the possibilities, not only what's going to go wrong, but what can go right. And understanding how to tune into the energy of the different possibilities to see what's best for me, to see what's best for my clients, and then teaching them how to tune in so that they can feel confident when they're making decisions too.
So tell me about that tuning in process. Tell me a little bit more what that's about. And, for the average person maybe that has never done anything intuitive, it's like they say that we have more brain cells, like nerve endings in our tummy, when they say I have a gut feeling. And now that's been proven by neuroscience that there's actually more, neurons in our tummy than there is even in our head, and it's wired throughout our body. But in our tummies, especially, there's that much more. So it makes sense what you're saying. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about the process of how you help people tune in.
So first, let me just explain something in alignment with what you were just mentioning. In Native traditions, they believe that we have 3 brains. We have our intuitive brain in our gut, we have our emotional brain in our heart, and then we have our logical brain. And what they do when they're making decisions is they go to that intuitive brain in their gut. Whereas in North America, we are so caught up in the busyness of life, we're caught up in our logical brain. And it's just a fraction of the insight and knowledge that's available to us. So one of the things that I was given on my spiritual journey was my own modality called Connect to You. And the intention of that work is to connect those three brains, your intuitive brain, your soul, your heart, and your mind. So as you open up those communication channels, then you're able to take the best of all those worlds. When I am teaching my clients, I still want you to do your due diligence with your logical brain. You still need to do the research. You still need to collect the information to make sure you're making an educated decision. And then you also bring in the intuitive things. So to walk through an example, let's say you had 3 choices for 3 different suppliers that you're considering to work with. Maybe you want to do online programs and you're looking for a membership site, for instance. So you do your due diligence, you get all the information, and then you look at option A, B, and C. I invite my clients to take a pause and notice, how do they feel physically, emotionally, mentally, and then what's your gut reaction for each option. So when you tune in physically, you close your eyes and you say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how does option A make me feel? And then you listen to your body. You do a quick body scan. Oh, I feel like really tight in my stomach or in my chest, and I'm finding it hard to breathe. I'm getting a tingling sensation down my leg, or I feel heavy. And then maybe for the next one, you feel this lightness and you feel like excitement, and you feel like you want to bounce up and down. And then for the third one, you just don't really notice anything. It just seems kind of neither here nor there. And then you go in, all right, emotionally, how does each option feel emotionally? So maybe the first one, it feels like there's this funny feeling in my mouth, like I almost want to, I want to vomit is sort of a thought that I have. And it's just, you feel yucky, you feel ill at ease. There's something really uncomfortable about that. The second one feels really exciting and really, really happy. And like, there's something really good about the energy of that one. And then the third one, I feel like deflated. And so tuning into the energy of how you feel emotionally. And then you go into your logical mind. Okay, well, the first one, you know what? It's a really comprehensive program. It does a lot, but I have to get 3 other programs to hook into it to get it to really integrate with my system. All right, so that one is like a 3 out of 10. And then the next one, I really like the integrity of the company. It really is an alignment. It flows effortlessly into my other programs. I need to get one more thing in to really get it to work properly, but I like the other solution and it feels great. And then the last one, it just is not comprehensive enough. It doesn't talk to other systems. It's not going to help me. There just is nothing with that. So bringing in the intuition, like that one, the situation I just described, it's kind of more clear on the logical mind, but sometimes there are things that are a little closer that makes it harder to distinguish which one's really the best. And that's when you go through this and you start to recognize the subtleties that are going on in your body as you start to think about working with each of the systems.
That sounds amazing, because when I think of myself in business and what I'm passionate about, it's speaking. Like, I love to speak, right? And every time I've kind of diverted away from that, I can tell, like, it's just work. It's just, it's too much. Yeah. And yes, the other stuff I might enjoy also, but when I get back online with anything related to the part that I love, because it doesn't feel like work for me. So It's interesting. So that's when you say that that would make a lot of sense, because when you sit with it, we generally go you're right, in the West, we go to the logical mind immediately, and we go to the metrics and what's going to happen and all that stuff. But most people don't often slow down, which is, I think, what you're saying is really the pebble in the rough there.
And that's slowing down. That is the genius for everything. We are trying to cram too much into our days, into our lives. And in the process, we're missing the joy of the process of bringing it to life. Mm-hmm. Because we got to get it all done, and I got to get this done, and I got to get that done. But what about like the joy of the research of learning new things. And what about the joy of, oh my gosh, the things that this is going to create that's possible. And there's a lot of joy that when we can slow down rather than just trying to get it done, that we can, and that's what we're here to do, right? We're not here to just make this widget. We're not here just to make this widget. We are here to have the joyful process of creating all of the different components that make the widget, of getting into that creative space, the problem-solving space, and going into new dimensions of like areas that we've never explored before for new materials to make that widget and create leading edge conversations for this widget. Even though it's just a widget, it could still be a leading edge widget.
And I think you're right. It's almost like, I've heard it described like child's play, right? If you look at a child play,
yes,
right? They're like their eyes are like lit up all the time, right? And with adults, we lose that because we're so outcome driven. Sometimes, I don't know if you go through this, sometimes I'll look back at my year because I'm needing, to get something together to renew something. And I'm looking, and I'm guilty of it. I'm sure a lot of people that you are too. I sometimes I think, oh my goodness, I cannot believe what I've done in 1 year.
Yes. And
right?
We don't celebrate it.
No, I know, because you're going. And then you're like, and then you stop because, I'm renewing a membership where they need validation or something. And then I'm like, wow, how did I get all of this stuff done? But you're so right. I'm a lot better now, but I wouldn't stop and say, well, I've started the podcast. I've hired an assistant, all that stuff that, it's kind of like, and these are big decisions. They're not little decisions. And I think you're right. It's almost like giving that emotional part of yourself a pat on the back, quite literally say, wow, you've done well. And there's things that have failed also, but how much you actually done. So celebrate, I think, is very, very key.
It is. And so I have a business mastermind, and that's one of the things that we do on every call. We celebrate what we've done in the last 2 weeks. And then we also look at what it is that we are working through. What do we need help with? And then create what we're accountable for the upcoming period. And then we always, always, always finish off our calls with who are we going to be for the next 2 weeks, and declare that. Because that's
that. Who are you going to be versus what are you going to achieve?
Yeah. Yes. Well, we do the what are you going to achieve, because we do have an accountability, but who are you going to be in order to be able to achieve that? Does that make sense?
I like that, Jennifer. Like, seriously, because when you're out of alignment, I know when I am, I can feel it, right?
Yes.
But if I'm kind of thinking in the world of why I started doing what I'm doing, I wanted to make a difference. My thing was, when I started as a little girl, I liked to talk to people, and they liked when I talked to them, they felt better. So I liked that element of being able to talk to people and make them feel better, which obviously ended up into me going to school and all those things. And really the element is just feeling the impact of changing someone's life.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And when I do things that take me off course of that, whatever the activity is, then I get stifled.
Yeah.
So it sounds very, so you're actually having people go in. So do you do things like actual slowing process with your masterminds and your one-to-one coaching, where you do like body scans? For people listening, a body scan is just like it sounds. It's kind of going into a state, and I'm thinking this is what I do as a body scan. You get very relaxed, and you really kind of listen to what what's happening at the top of your head, kind of what's happening in your cheek, and you go all the way over your body, and then you kind of become in tune with what your body's sharing with you. Is that the same thing that you do?
Yes. So I teach people how to do this. I call it personal energy management. And I teach them how to do it every day for themselves, so that when they're making the decisions, it's something that they're able to do kind of automatically. So imagine doing this quick check-in every single day. How am I feeling physically, emotionally, mentally, and then spiritually, to know how you're feeling? So you're doing this body scan. It's like, oh, you know what? I didn't realize I got a kink in my back. I must have slept funny last night. But that kink in the back could be a distraction for you all day. You might
Right.
be better served by taking 5 minutes to do some stretching or booking an appointment to see your healthcare practitioner to get it looked at, or making a note that if it's not better by the next day, to get it looked at. But
Yeah.
once you've done this check-in and you write it down, then you know what's going on in your body. Physically, emotionally, you might realize that you're tired. You might realize that you're still feeling some heaviness in your heart because of a conversation you had with somebody that you cared about yesterday, and it's still affecting you today. So getting present, and then mentally, you can tune into, all right, I'm feeling really alert. I feel really alive. I feel like I can take on the day. Or it could be that my brain's in a fog because I didn't sleep last night because my back's bothering me. So I need to reorganize my day in order to make sure I have some time to get myself into a place where I can think better. Or perhaps, that accounting or proposal that I was going to work on, I need to move it to the next morning when I'm in a better mental state, so I'm not ending up redoing it all over again.
So
But
it's really about gentleness and kindness to yourself. I mean, at the end of the day, certain things have to go out certain times. We know about deadlines.
absolutely,
We don't have
yes.
to tell business people that. They understand that, right? If you're talking about working on a speech, it's going to get done, because sometimes you just have to work through things. But overall, you're telling people to really intuit where they are on every level and
Yes.
maximize their energy based on what's happening for them. Do you have people kind of map out what their most productive times of the day are and kind of work with that also?
If people don't have that awareness yet, doing this check-in 3 times a day helps them identify that.
Okay.
And even though you might have things that you need to get done, well, because you know that you have some things that you need to get done, we review what are the best tools for them to reach for to get into a better feeling state so that they can get that work done. How can they
Okay.
boost their energy? So for me, when it's nice out, my go-to is going outside. Even if it's a cold, today's a rainy day, not such a great day, but even if it's wintertime, but it's nice and sunny out, I'll put my boots on, I'll put my coat on, go for a walk around the block, go for a walk around my garden, get grounded. And that will, anytime I'm feeling less than a 7, I have to do something immediately to fix that, because I know that the work that I'm going to do, I'm just going to have to fix it anyway. So I'm better off spending 5 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it might be, to boost my energy in order to have the thing that I'm working on have the best energy, have me showing up as the best version of myself. Otherwise, I'm going to redo it. It'll take me longer in the end.
Makes so much sense, right? Because sometimes you'll hear the prescription, get up, do this, do that, and I try to apply to everyone, and we know that that's not reality. It's really about it tailoring to who we are, where we're at. Do you have when people, I know you work with a lot of female entrepreneurs. You're still, getting the lunches and throwing them out the front door or driving them to school, all that stuff. That's still part of your day. So kind of trying to figure out with people what the best flow is for them, and being authentic, which obviously I talk a lot about that, because about being, why am I doing what I'm doing? Yes, we all work and we have to make a living, but when I'm connected to who I am and what I do, it's just easier to produce.
Yes. And especially the women who still have children and that they need to take care of their needs. If we were a phone, if you can imagine your phone battery, if it is on like 30%, you're going to want to charge it up before you begin your day. So
Yes.
you need to charge yourself up before you begin your day with whatever you need to do for the kids. So if it means getting up half an hour earlier, then you need to do that, to do some sort of practice to take care of yourself. Even if you had to stay up late to finish off something else for someone else, and you're not able to get that full half hour in, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, something to nurture you, to get you into a better place. Because if you're just trying to get the kids out the door at 30% and then you're getting frustrated, and then that starts their day off in a frustrated way. And
Absolutely.
then
Absolutely.
oh my gosh, I shouldn't have yelled at them. And then it snowballs for the rest of your day. So taking that 10 minutes, even is going to set the tone for the rest of your day. We get so distracted by everybody else's needs, and we need to really take care of our own needs in order to shine. And just even that quick check-in, how do I feel physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, even if you have to do it in bed before you get out of bed. That's great. I encourage people to do it when they brush their teeth, because that's a natural time. So you check in on before you get started with your day, and then at the end of the day, and then find a natural time in the middle of the day. Maybe it's when you fill up a water bottle, or when you go grab lunch.
Nice. So I'm intrigued by this, and I wanted her to talk a little bit about it. There's a pendulum that she uses, and I have to get to you, Jennifer, to experience this. And I think you took it out of the meeting, and we kind, you kind of showed me what you did. But I want you to explain it to people, because I think a lot of people, we're all trying to figure out more ways to clear our head, get more true, and as we're ending off 2013, I know I'm thinking, what could I do differently? How can I, as I get a year, my birthday's in January, so I'm, another year later, kind of, how do I, kind of do it, but don't be so harsh about it. Yes. Just learn more ways. And when you showed me the pendulum about the questions, I was fascinated. So I asked Jennifer to tell us a little bit about that process and, what she does with it. So
first I want to explain what working with a pendulum is. It's called dowsing. And dowsing is something that's been around for thousands of years. It's even mentioned in the Bible. A lot of people are familiar with the term of dowsing. I know I first heard about it in school, where we heard about people who would go on a farmland and they would have a Y stick. So there'd be two handles that would be held in each hand, left and right, and then the stick that goes down for the Y is what would point out in front of them, and they would walk the land to see where to drill for water. And then that Y, the stick part, would wiggle when they found the location. What you're doing is you're tuning into life force energy with that stick. I use this process of dowsing with a tool called a pendulum. And a pendulum is really like a chain or a piece of string that's like 3 to 6 inches long and a weight at the end of it. You could use a pendant of a necklace as a pendulum. You can buy pendulums from different spiritual stores or some health food stores even. They are often made out of a crystal material or wood, or it could be metal. Those are the most common materials. I can douse with pretty much anything, even if I had a tea bag, a wet tea bag, a light tea bag, not so much, but a tea bag that's been wet, but not dripping wet, because you don't want that making a mess. And it's about, whenever I pick up my pendulum, I feel like I'm having a conversation with the universe. I'm saying, okay, universe, my soul, I believe my soul is the universe. That's my personal belief. Okay, what information is it that I need to know about this situation? I've programmed my pendulums for a response for yes, no, yes but, and no but. So it's kind of like the 20 questions game. If I ask a question, I can get a yes answer or no, and then yes but and no but help me to, it's more like the hot and cold game where you're getting warmer. So I need to reframe my question to make sure that I'm getting the answer the end result of the answer that I'm looking for. I prefer to use something called a ray chart. And what a ray chart is if you can think back to school days where you have a protractor, and on the end of the protractor, there's all the degrees of the radius for that semicircle. Yep. Now, imagine instead of there being all those numbers at the end, that there were options of the different things you're trying to consider. So let's say, go back to that 3 different systems you're trying to evaluate. You want to get clear as to what are the parameters for the end result that I'm looking for. So for the system that I'm evaluating for, I want to make sure that it's easy to use, it integrates into my existing systems. I want to make sure that the way it looks represents my brand, and that it's going to be also easy for my clients to use. So I'll write down all those parameters, and it needs to fit my budget. And So I'll write down all those parameters of what a positive end result looks like. Now, tuning into that, feeling that, all right, so you read it over. This is what feels really good for my end result. This is what I want it to feel like. I write down on a ray chart. So I draw a line across the bottom and then up straight for where 90 degrees would be, and then up to the left and up to the right. So there's a line across the bottom and then 3 lines that stick out. And then I will say, based on these parameters, what is the best option for me to choose? And then I can pick that option. It'll swing towards it.
So the middle is no?
The middle will actually be, so if I draw a line across the bottom,
Okay.
that's kind of like a baseline.
Okay.
And then if I draw a line up top for option B, a line to the left for option A, and a line to the right for option C.
Okay.
And then I hold my pendulum at the bottom intersection where that B line, so the line that's at 90 degrees intersects with baseline.
Okay.
I'll ask the question based on these parameters, which system is best for me? And I wait to see where it swings. And I also need to have other, because there could be another system that I haven't evaluated that I need to look at. So one of those, the baseline to the right, I'll write other.
Okay.
So that's how I use a ray chart. When I use the pendulum to get a yes or no response, I've programmed my pendulum to show a clockwise rotation for yes and a counterclockwise rotation for no. So I can ask, well, to be honest, I find that asking yes and no questions gets to be tedious. It's good for getting started as you're learning how to dowse, but I just go to ray charts. I'll ask instead on a scale of 1 to 10, and Roxanne, I'm going to show you what I keep this under my keyboard. It's a scale of 1 to 10, so it's a ray chart with a scale of 1 to 10. So if I need to dowse to get the insight on a question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how beneficial is it for me to do this interview with Roxanne? I was presented with an opportunity to do a presentation this Friday. On a scale of 1 to 10, how beneficial is it for me to do this presentation? And I got a 10, and it kind of surprised me because I had decided I was going to focus on other things, and yet I got a yes for this, and it was something that I was going to make a priority for next year. But I can see how saying yes to this helps me get things in alignment to make it a priority for next year.
So you're holding the charts and then just using the pendulum this way.
Yeah, so I hold the chart horizontally in front of me, so it would be like on the desk in front of me.
Right.
And then I hold the pendulum over the midpoint section where all of the lines reach the
the base. Okay, that's interesting. Like I said, I was fascinated by the time you told me. I'm even fascinated. And what did it say about being on my show?
A 10, of course.
Well, I don't know. I'm thinking, okay, I hope she got a 10 or at least somewhere high.
For me, I need a 10. For me to say
you need to move forward, you go with a 10.
I go with a 10.
And if you get anything, let's say less than a 10, like an 8, what does that signify for you?
So that, for instance, I'm going to walk you through the example that something that we're deciding in our home right now. My son's deciding what universities to go to.
Mm-hmm.
In his decision, I like to tune in to understand what he's considering. And of the 4 schools that he's going to, I dowsed and I determined, okay, so this is the best school for him to go to. And I said, oh, just out of curiosity, on a scale of 1 to 10, how is it if he goes to this school, this school, this school? And of the 4, 3 of them are a 10 and 1 is an 8. So I know that he can't make a bad decision.
Mm-hmm.
I know I can give him the space to feel what's right for him. And I know that I can rest easy, that it's all good. So let's say there's 4 options of something I'm considering. 3 of them are a 10 and 1's an 8. But maybe number 8, the one that's an 8, maybe I get to work with somebody that I really, 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 really want to work with. It will help me understand a couple of things. If I really, really, really am attached to working with that person, I might say, okay, it still is pretty decent and I'll still say yes to it. And it will also help me say, all right, working with that person is really good and really exciting, but there's something even better waiting for me with these other options. Does that make sense?
Nice. Yeah, no, absolutely. Because sometimes, yeah, a lot of options, they don't have a clear and definite differentiating variable logically, right?
Yes.
Right. And then, like, if you're doing the dousing and like with your son, like, clearly, you know, that fourth option can go aside. And then it really comes down to there are three great options for him. It really depends on which way he wants to go. And
Yes.
think about it in business. How often are we're faced with options like that? I'm doing an online course. I can do this and this and this and this and this. And, you know, I can coach this way, or I can do this. And there's like every step, you know, to adding a product, there's 20 steps potentially of things that you could do. So every time it becomes confusing.
Yes. And the most important part, though, is that you have to step back from the decision. And until you can learn how to become detached and be neutral, your dowsing will not be accurate.
Okay.
It took me a year to build up my accuracy, because I would be here with a pendulum in my hand and be like, I need to know an answer. And that doesn't help me, because it will be a reflection of, right, I had to tune into, based on these parameters, what is the best outcome. But if I'm feeling like this, that's the perspective of the answer that's going to be reflected back to me.
Right. So the year that you worked was just getting spiritually connected, slowing down, doing lots of different spiritual practices, I would assume.
Yes, learning
Okay.
meditation. I learned automatic writing. I learned more about how to work with the pendulum. I learned about tuning into energy. And I've actually been working with energy since I was 4 years old, and I just didn't realize it.
Oh, wow.
And because I'm the baby of 7, and my eldest brother had a bad water skiing accident and his back was thrown out. So I became the family massage therapist when he was lying on the living room floor, just trying to get some relief for his back, and I rubbed his back. And now I realize that I actually was doing energy work with him. My uncle's an energy healer in Europe, and he had told me that there's one in every generation. And while that might sound really woo, we all work with energy. All of our senses, our 5 senses, it's all energy. And the way I work with it is just a heightened awareness for it. And those are the things, that's the skill that I teach my clients, is how do you heighten those skills? How do you heighten those senses so that when you feel something coming on, you get a funny taste in your mouth, a funny feeling in your body, that you stop and you listen to it. But you have to have slowed down in order to have noticed it.
Right. Absolutely. And I think of when I see my clients, whether I'm coaching them or in my practice as a psychotherapist, and I think I said that to you, sometimes I will feel like I can wade through their words and really, really hear what they're trying to say on a profound level. And then I'll say it back to them and they'll go, where'd you get that from?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, no, tell me where those words you just picked, where, and I said, I was just listening to you, but really listening on a deep level. And sometimes they're blown away. They're like, wow, it's like you were reading my mind. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, because it's so bang on, and maybe something they weren't even saying in their words that they were thinking.
Yes.
That, you know, so like, I know you and I talked a little bit about that, you know, it's about it. I guess it's intuitive plus years of doing what I do. And then, you know, you're just trying to tune in that much more to figure out what is the client needing that they're maybe not saying.
Well, there is all of that. And so the skill that I see you have built up is you have become so attuned to the energy of words and the words people choose, as well as the way they sound as they express it. Because if somebody says, you go, how are you? And I say, I'm fine. it feels way different than, oh, I'm fine, thanks for
Yeah.
asking. You know, there's a way different energy. And sometimes that I'm fine is just very subtle in the difference of I'm fine, right? It's subtle, but you can still see that there's something there and you can pull that out. I'm the same way when I'm having conversations with clients. There'll be one or two words that really jump out of what they're saying. It's like, ooh, 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 tell me more about that. There's something about that word that's really important for you in your business. And then as you go in, it's like that is like their soul's purpose, and that is what is the foundation for the whole reason why they created the business in the first place. And it's coming out in this one word. It's like, okay, you need to really make sure you express this in your marketing as you're working with clients, because it's foundational for the work that you do with them. So that listening. And when we can become aware of the things that we are saying, right? Because it's easier to pick up what's going on around us, but to pick up what we're projecting out, that is a huge skill to learn too. Because if you can understand how you're landing and how you're being heard by the outside world, and some of these subliminal things that are going, subconscious things that are going on within yourself, and how it's affecting the words that you're using and the way that you're presenting yourself, that's huge. That's even more powerful. And that's what I want to empower people with. So this is personal, but my husband and I, we have a raised garden bed in our backyard where we're growing vegetables. And we first started it about 3 years ago, and my husband wanted to move it by like a foot because he wanted to get the lawnmower in around it. And I really didn't want him to move it. And he's like, I don't understand. Why are you so upset about me moving this raised garden bed a foot? Like, what's the big deal? And so I had to pause. It's like, okay, what's going on for me? And I realized that I felt sad. It's like, okay, well, what's that sadness about? I felt sad for the plants that would have already reseeded themselves, that would grow all by themselves if we leave it right where it was. So there was this connection to me and my little babies of the plants that I had planted in that garden that I wanted to see come up. And once I was able to realize, okay, that's what it is. All right, I feel badly about it, but I can handle that. We can move it over a foot to make things easier for you. And but does that make sense? Like,
absolutely, because I think I think we when you in my psychotherapy role, people are they kind of come and they're open, but then in the business world, I think the concept is the exact same concept. But it's really then you're focusing more on what your business is projecting out. And guess what? Is it any different in a lot of ways of when people are stuck in different parts of their life? I will deal with people with every parts of their life. When I coach, it's different, obviously. It's not as in-depth, but as a psychotherapist, it could be any part of their lives. And your business coaching, you're really dealing with them and their expression of themselves through their business.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So you're tuning into all the things that matter and what they value and who, what, why, and when, and all those things, because at the end of the day, if you're aligned with that and you create from that space, then it's kind of like play, right? You still have to work. We all have to work, but then you're not efforting as much as you're going along with what you want versus kind of trying to create something like, oh yeah, I should be doing this because Jane is doing this or whatever. And it's like, that squirrel, which are so many entrepreneurs get, and I've been there and still do it at times, where then I stop and say, why am I doing why am I doing this? What am I hoping to, is it just outcome driven? Is it something that I think I should be doing? Or is it something that I really, deep within me knows that I have to do this. This is really something that is necessary for my business.
And the thing is that when we create this awareness, this self-awareness for how we're showing up, and this awareness of what's most important to us for how we want to live our lives and how we want to express our business, it helps us to create a container that makes that intuitive business decision-making easier. Because if you know where you're focusing your attention and intention, then it's easier to say yes to this opportunity or no to that opportunity. Because if it's not in alignment with where you're going, then it's not going to help you. So
Right.
before we started on the call, I shared that, I've been presented with an opportunity to speak this Friday. And in the last few weeks, I've decided, no, I'm going to focus my attention here, because I wanted to do some corporate stuff. I wanted to do personal stuff. I wanted to do entrepreneur stuff. It's like, no, I need to focus on entrepreneurs. I need to pick a lane, right? Pick a lane. And so when I tuned in to this opportunity and I got a yes for this, it's just like, all right, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to be courageous, and I'm going to get this all put together. And then just in our conversation here, I realized, and I said this earlier, that even though it's not really what I want to focus on right now, I know that's going to lay a foundation for it to be, for me to be able to focus on it in the future, like in next year. And the work that I do for this is also going to help me prepare for my target market too. So it's all going to be valuable, and it's going to create some other interesting insights for me and for those that I connect with. So it's all good.
Sounds amazing. Now, to me, sounds like an alignment. So with people that are coming to you, you said they're people that are already started their business. Are you with startups, or have they been in business what's the right kind of match for client for you, for people listening? And, and then we're going to talk. I know you have an event coming up, which I would love to hear more about. And if, to tell people where, if they wanted to get their business planning done, they might be able to come out and work with you in Burlington or Mississauga?
In Burlington.
Okay. All right.
So I work with people who are already established in their business.
Okay.
They already have a foundation in place. They already have some of the systems in place. I can help them with fine-tuning that, but I can best serve people who already have a foundation in place.
Okay.
Who want to fine-tune how they're showing up and go up to the next level. They have figured the basics out. Like I'm not here to help you create your initial business plan. You need to have already figured out in general what you want to do. I can help with fine-tuning that or going in a new direction, but you have to have an idea of where you're starting and foundation for whether you are making widgets, or if you are doing coaching, or if you're doing online products. You have to know what your offer is in general, and we can fine-tune things going forward, but you have to have something that you're starting from, a base that you're starting from.
Okay. And so tell us about this year-end business planning that it's coming up soon. So tell everybody a bit about it, and where they can get information further on, or where they can just reach out to you to sign up for this event.
Absolutely. So on Wednesday, December 12th, I'm hosting a small group here in Burlington for an intuitive business planning full-day workshop. So we'll be beginning by reviewing 2018, celebrating. We were talking earlier about celebrating our wins, celebrating what went really well, reflecting on some of the things that didn't go so well, and doing a release so you're not carrying the energy of beating yourself up for what didn't go well in 2018. We don't want you carrying that energy into 2019. Then we're going to look at giving the space for all of those ideas that you have for what you're considering doing for 2019, tune into the energy of the ideas, prioritize them, create a structure for the year ahead, and then start to map them out across every month so you can start to have your plan for how you're moving forward. So by the end of the day, you'll have at least the beginning outline. You'll have to still drill down a little bit more for all the fine details, but you'll know that in this month, I'm focusing on this. And this month, I'm going to focus on that. Or maybe these 3 months, I'm focusing on this project, and then I'm going to do that launch, and then I'm going to focus on that. So you're not running all over the place. You're able to manage your energy better, focus your efforts in a more productive way, and also then start to do your marketing planning so you can get your content calendar figured out and create content that you can make once and use multiple times. So you create, all right, this month I know that I need to talk about business planning, say for December. In my December, I'm going to be in November at the end of next year, focusing my conversations on the business planning for the following year. So I will be creating posts on why you do it, how do you do it, And then I can use it not only for blog posts, but I can then use it for Facebook posts, LinkedIn posts, and videos. All the same content, so you're not efforting as much. You're using all the same information, and then it flows into what your offering is.
Great. Well, that sounds like a fantastic day. So is there somewhere people can go to sign up for it, or what's the process for them to sign up for it?
So if they went to my website, jlyall.com/events, on the left-hand side, they'll find the event and they're able to click on it and register there.
Okay, great. Well, this has been fascinating yet again, talking to you about this, and, the level that, I've worked with coaches and I'm presently working with one, but this is again a different kind of way of approaching it, which really makes sense, right? Because initially, you're right, when you get started, you're waiting and you're knee deep and you're in the weeds. You're trying to figure all that stuff out. And me, a couple years in now, I'm clearer, but this really helps me to see how you could provide clarity to people that are in that space. Because when I talk to some of my colleagues, they'll talk about, oh, I shouldn't have done that. It took me offline for, 4 months, or, yeah, I got it done, but you know what? I didn't have fun. Yeah, there's a revenue stream, but I won't do it again. I've heard and I know that there's things that I've done, and even in this last year, that I think, wow, I shouldn't have done that.
And yet I still will look at things that sometimes I get guided to do it, and it might not make sense then in that moment. However, the skill set that I learned or the relationships that I formed are still helpful for moving forward. So there are some people who will be cursing, oh, I wish I'd left corporate sooner, but then they forget about that. If they had left it the year before, then they wouldn't have gotten that extra training that the corporation had paid for them to do, that they're now able to use in their business, right?
Right.
So it's always looking at the gift in those experiences. So when we can stop beating ourselves up for it too, I get that there's that reflection of okay, so that's not quite the outcome that I was expecting, and seeing what you can learn from it. But as long as you're not beating yourself up over it, what are the gems that you can take away from it? And I'm sure that you must do that with all of your clients too, whether it's the coaching clients or the psychotherapy clients. All right, sure, this disaster happened, but you ended up being a stronger person on the other side of it. And what was it about who you're being that you learned?
Right. Oh, no, without a doubt, you learn so much about yourself. Like every time you try something new, and then you think, okay, well, yes, I did gain skills, but then like you said, when you go inside and kind of think about what did I learn? What will I not repeat? How will this guide me differently? Absolutely. You gain so much from some of the new things that you experience, and then now you have all this additional knowledge, right, to bring with you, so that prior to doing something like an event, I did my first event this year, I learned a ton, and I learned how not to do it on my own again, just because I was awfully tired because I pulled most of it off by myself. Wow. So so again, learning and more energy and those types of things, but it still ended up being quite successul. But again, that, like you said, that learning experience, did it add to my brand? Absolutely. Did I have people attend? Absolutely. Did we get a lot of exposure? Absolutely. But I think from a business perspective, it took energy away from me that I would have used, I could have used my energy in different ways by hiring or subcontracting out a lot more parts that could have been done by others, right? Which is kind of like what you said. Learn what that genius is and stick to it, and then hire or try to kind of outsource the parts that other people can take care of better than you could.
Yes. And I also believe that having that experience from the get-go helps you understand how you still want things done and who you need to get, and it just helps still too. So it's amazing.
Well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And I think video doesn't create the feeling that you get around Jennifer. I could tell you that when I was sitting with her in Mississauga the first time I met her, I sat next to her, and I could feel I don't know what the energy was, but I could it was somebody, I said I have to talk to her. I just knew I had to talk to her. So it was really a pleasure. And then we saw each other again just recently. So thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. For anybody that's, you know, at the stage, like she's saying, where you're kind of trying to get that clarity, that course, Burlington is, you know, obviously in the GTA. We're not too far out here in the Golden Horseshoe. It's easy to get to. It's a 1 day right in your backyard. So definitely look it up, and anything that you can do to get more authentically connected to yourself, which is what I talk about with my brand, the Authentic Connection Movement, is we're helping ourselves. And the more anchored we are within ourselves, ultimately, what are we doing? We're better in our relationships. We're better in our friendships. We're better in our, our businesses. We're better in our community. And we're just overall radiating that space, that genius, like you said, that we're meant to be in the world. But that takes time. It takes time, and it takes commitment, and it takes slowing down. And, what I would say is, the intuiting doesn't just happen. It's something that it's a muscle like anything else, where you really have to start to learn to slow down and develop that muscle so that it makes it easier to access. So Jennifer, again, thank you so much for being here. And for everybody listening or watching, if you're wanting more information on me, you go to roxannederhodge.com/blueprint, where you can download a free course on how to be a bit more authentically connected to yourself, so that you can make the magic happen, like Jennifer talked to us today. Okay, take care, everyone. Thanks so much, Jennifer, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Authentic Living with Roxanne, creating the space for positive, healthy change. Roxanne is a keynote speaker, psychotherapist, and coach. To work with Roxanne, visit roxannederhodge.com/blueprint. We'll see you next time on Authentic Living with Roxanne.